Welcome to Pencils and Lipstick. This is a podcast for indie authors. I'm Kat Caldwell, novelist, short story writer, and book coach. Here on Pencils and Lipstick, we're obsessed with all things story, and it is my goal to bring you the writing tips that you need to make your novel come to life. Hello everyone, welcome back to Pencils and Lipstick. This is episode 301 of the podcast, and it is March 8th as I record this. So we are just trucking along in 2026. Today we have an interview with Jessica Snyder. If you don't know about Jessica, she runs the HEA Club. I'll be talking about her in just a second. She is going to be talking to us about editing. She's going to give us quite a few hints and tips and tricks about it. But before we get into the interview, let me just remind you guys that next week is our second Craft and Connect episode. We are going to be talking about the core values of building your marketing brand. I am going to be telling Becky about my core values that I have chosen, and she's going to ask me questions about them. And then we are going to go into newsletters. Newsletters are absolutely essential to your author brand, to your business. And I'm going to try to convince you of it. And there will be free resources in the show notes next week. And be sure to check out the show notes this week. You'll be checking out Jessica's website, and she has a couple freebies over there when you get on her newsletter, because that is the sort of pillar of your business, really. Like any online business needs a newsletter. So if you don't know how to set up a newsletter, that is going to be in the free resource next week. It's just like a little kind of mini course, like a crash course really, on like all of the points about newsletter marketing. And then there's a little handout next week of ideas on what you can talk about in your newsletter. I think that is the hardest. And I think that's probably where most people get their overwhelm, is like, oh my gosh, now I have to write a newsletter, and what do I tell people? So anyway, be sure to come back next week and listen to the episode. And then if you haven't already, sign up. There's still a couple seats left. And honestly, it's the places have gone quicker than we thought that they would go. But the Craft and Connect Live, the very first one, is going to be on March 24th at 1 p.m. Eastern. And that is going to be Becky and I ready to take your questions. We are going to be sending out like a little form next week in case you have a scheduling conflict, or in case you don't want to talk live. You will be able to send in your question ahead of time if you wish. But you can also just come and talk to us and ask questions. And you can ask us any sort of question, from like marketing to publishing, basically. So Becky will be there and I will be there. So it looks like we are about halfway through the seats. I left 60 seats open. That's a lot of people. So we have 30 people already signed up. If you want to be there, and only the people who sign up for the live will get the link to the recording, and the recording will be available for 60 days. And then we'll have another one in June. And the reason I'm not going to keep it available forever is because I'm not sure that anything will really stay that relevant. And it's going to kind of encourage you guys to come to the next live. So the next live will be in June. So if you can't make this one, and you don't want to keep the recording or watch the recording, then you can come in June, and we're going to sort of take a poll on what time of day might be a little easier for people. So we will be changing the time. It can't be like 3 a.m. here. So there's that. But be sure to sign up and come and yeah, hang out with us. It'll be about an hour and a half long, and you are allowed to come and go as you please. You don't have to stay the whole time. You don't have to come on time either. All right. So that's my pitch for you. If you are listening, please subscribe, leave a review. We haven't had any reviews for a while. That always helps the algorithm. Although there are so many apps out there in which people listen to the podcast, so it's hard to tell you where to give a review, but the top apps are Spotify or Apple. So if you happen to be listening on those, giving a review is always helpful. And then more than anything, just sharing about the podcast always helps. It helps get the writer in your life, getting them tips and inspiration and encouragement. And then all of my guests, of course, it gets their name out there as well. So we're always appreciative of any sharing that you do. So today we are talking with Jessica Snyder. The amazing thing about Jessica is that she has had clients ranging from Pippa Grant to Lucy Score to indie authors. Like she has worked with Entangled Publishing. She worked for them for 4 years. She worked from her way up from an intern to an editorial assistant. And she worked with people such as Kelly Jamieson and Carly Bloom. And now she is an independent editor and mostly for indie authors. And she has created the HEA Author Services, which has the HEA Club and has a whole team of coaching and editing services as well as online courses. So she is really honed in on helping especially romance writers edit their books and edit them well so that indie authors, that you can't really tell the difference in quality between an indie author or a traditionally published author. So she has an extensive resume. She has lots of experience, and I think it's really important to listen to people who have worked in both the traditional field and in the independent field, because I think that they have just so much wisdom to share with us. So she says she's also spent 5 years in the U.S. Army as an Arabic interpreter. So she's a little bit particular when it comes to military romance. So if you are writing military romance, you might want to check out work with Jessica to make sure that all of the things are correct. There's a lot of, acronyms and different things about the military that you might not know if you're not in it. So we're going to go straight into the interview today. There isn't a whole lot more to update you guys on other than what I already gave you with the Craft and Connect Live. So I cannot wait for you guys to hear from Jessica. Okay, so I'm excited to speak with Jessica Snyder today. Hi, Jessica. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, I'm really excited to talk to you. You come highly recommended by a mutual friend. So we are going to get into editing and romance books and all the things. But before we do, can you tell us just a little bit about yourself and how you got into coaching?
Sure. So my name is Jessica Snyder, and I have been a romance reader since I was probably 11 or 12. I always thought that if I liked it so much that the only option was to write. And then I went to my first Romance Writers of America conference in 2012. When I was there, I won breakfast with the editors for Harlequin Karina, which was their digital
Wow.
first line. And so sat down with the editors at breakfast, talked to them, and realized, oh, wait, there's another way that I can do this that isn't
Yeah.
writing, because writing has always felt really difficult, and I never
Okay.
want to finish a
Yeah.
project. I have like a bunch of fun ideas, and then it'll just kind of, I get those down on paper and then I'm done. Um, so after that, I realized that editing was a thing I could do. I felt like it was better suited for me, and I applied for an internship with Entangled Publishing in 2013. So I
Oh,
still had a full-time
cool.
corporate job at the time. And I stayed with them for about 4 years. I was an editorial assistant to several senior editors. And so I got to see how publishing worked from that side of it. And then I started
Yeah.
freelancing in 2016. And in 2020, I was able to quit my corporate job and go into this full time. So editing,
Wow.
coaching, I have some online courses, I have a membership group, a lot of
That's
different
so cool.
ways. Yeah.
Isn't it funny how we think there's only like one way to do things? Like I want to work
Hmm.
in film, I must be an actor. Or like
Exactly.
it's like
But there are
wait,
so many other options.
that's so cool. What made you go to the conference? Were you still trying to like I got to figure out how to write and
Mhm.
that's why you went?
I was writing. I had joined Romance Writers of America, I think the first time in like 2004, probably. So I
Yeah.
knew like the organization was out there. I was on the mailing list. Going to a conference seemed like a lot of fun. I had some
Hmm.
other writer friends who would be there, and so they kind of held my hand and walked me through it. And it was definitely a learning experience, and it helped like move everything I'm doing
Yeah, that's so
from writing to
cool.
editing. Yeah.
Like life is so much like that. You make one choice and it opens a giant door
Hmm.
into how, who knows what would have happened, but
Right?
maybe you would have figured it out. But like winning breakfast with people and being like, oh, I could actually help people get their books better and like to market. That sounds exciting.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly.
And especially if you're like a good ideas person. So like I love how you put your Clifton strengths, like your learner input. That's me. Oh my gosh. I'm just always listening to stuff. Sometimes I'm like, stop, just silence would be good.
Hmm.
Like, but you need like writers, I think more than anything, need somebody to bounce ideas off of. What do you think about that?
I think it depends on the type of writer.
Okay.
So I definitely like going back to Clifton strengths. I don't have high ideation. I think ideation is at the bottom of my strengths. However,
That's
the
so
other strengths
funny.
that I have, like learner and input and analytical and these others, make it so I can see what's happening and what's working with other people. And then I can offer that or adjust it if
Mm.
necessary. So I don't have my own ideas, but I can regurgitate everybody else's.
Well,
So
that's
I
what
definitely,
story is, right? We're like
yeah,
taking like there's no new story.
exactly.
We're rearranging more than
Exactly.
anything.
So yeah, I definitely have authors who want to bounce ideas and they want to plot and they get stuck and they don't know where to go next and we can work through that. And then I have other authors where they're very set, they know exactly what they want to do and they just need some help with the execution of it.
Okay. All right. So when you started your internship, like you had been writing, but you hadn't necessarily been editing. So what
Mhm.
was that process of like I can become an editor and what did that mean? Like
Mhm.
to get that certification, I guess I don't know, to be that
So it was
title.
nothing official. Basically, one of the senior editors at Entangled put out a call on Twitter, said she was looking for an
I
intern.
loved it when Twitter was like that. It
Yeah,
was so fun.
yeah. And I've never been like a big social media person. I don't like being on social media, but at the breakfast with Harlequin, they
Right.
had said, check out Entangled, follow them on Twitter because sometimes when they're looking for interns, that's where they put the call. And it was, I don't know,
Wow.
4 or 6 months later that the call went out. And so the editor had said, these are the types of books that she works on. Entangled was only publishing romance and YA at the time. So I knew
Okay.
it was going to be romance, whatever it
Right.
was. And it's my favorite genre. Um, so she said, these are the types of books that I like. These are the types of books that I want to work on. Therefore, these are the types that you would be working on if you're interested. And it was kind of like it was an interview process, but very different from anything I had ever done before, obviously. And then once it started, she was a mentor to me and she taught me what they were actually looking for. So I would read through slush pile submissions. So authors who weren't agented could just
Right.
submit directly to Entangled. And I would read through those and I would say yay or nay on them. And I knew, like, I had a rubric that we were working
Right.
on,
Right.
and,
Right.
and this is what Entangled is looking for. So it was easier to say, yes, this is a good fit, or no, this isn't. After
Okay.
I'd done that for, I don't know, probably 6 or 8 months, I was um, upgraded, I guess, or promoted to editorial assistant. But it was still mostly unpaid work and it was mostly volunteer, but I absolutely loved doing it because I got to learn
Yeah.
so much from it.
Oh,
And
that's
then
so
I
cool.
was editing where I would do the first pass edit, and then the senior editor would come back behind me and we would go over like what I had shown and what she had shown and like where there might be a disconnect or
Okay.
basically just teaching me how to do the edit itself. And I
That's
worked,
amazing that they were willing
yeah.
to do that for you. Like, I
So
don't know if
it
that's usual or not, is
it
it?
was a training process, but it got to the point that the editor could hand things off to the editorial assistant. The assistant could do
Right.
basically a lot of the first pass work. And then when the editor came in, they were doing kind of that second pass deeper work. And
Interesting.
right, I think it made it easier for them and also gave them the chance to go deeper with the story.
Right. It was worth their time to teach you.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And you just got in at the right, I think like the industry at that point, it's just the right time.
Everything was changing. Yeah. Because
Yeah.
ebooks were still like 2010, 2011. A lot of times it was still like a PDF that somebody emailed
Yes,
you.
it really
And
was.
that was not a comfortable way to read, right? And then
Right.
the Kindle came out and everything changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you were willing to do it for free. And
Hmm.
and that sometimes is a good life lesson of like if you love something and you're willing and you're like being taught something incredible,
Mhm.
it's worth doing it, right? Like
Right?
that
It was worth my
exchange.
time to learn
Yeah.
that skill set, knowing that I could do something with it in the future, as opposed to, picking up a new hobby or watching TV or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. So when you're looking like through the slush pile, even though you mostly work with indie authors now, but like slush pile, like
Mhm.
that's still kind of writing to market, right? Like learning how,
Mhm.
like what the market is looking for. So how is it that they choose? Like, are they looking at what readers are reading, or are they kind of trying to move the market, or like what do you see as like this industry? How we figure that out?
So the traditional publishing houses, and Entangled is traditional, they want to buy books that they can sell,
Hmm.
right? So a lot of it came down to, does the author have a good, strong voice that we can work on? Because it's harder to teach voice than it is like the
Oh,
technical structure of a book. So
interesting.
if you're a
Okay.
good storyteller, we can
Yeah.
teach you how to write. But if you're kind of a boring storyteller, it's harder to teach you to be interesting than it is to
Yeah.
teach you how goal, motivation, and conflict work.
No,
So,
that's a good point
yeah,
though.
so author voice and style was always pretty big. And then, just some genres and subgenres within romance sell better than others.
Hmm.
And so if Entangled didn't think that they could sell something in particular, then we wouldn't want that style of book, whether
Sure.
it was, dystopian romance, which wasn't very big at the time, like 2013 and 14. If somebody had submitted something like horror romance, serial killer romance, we probably would have said no because there was no market for it at that point, at least
Yeah.
none that the company could see. So a lot of it
Yeah.
is what's working in the market, what are readers buying, also like what's just happening in kind of pop culture in general, what's happening with movies, what's happening with TVs, how is that going to translate to books? Because a lot of times
Oh,
when we see big pop culture moments happen in TV or movies, it takes longer for those to be created, like the production process is longer. But indie authors, especially, can see something happen and put a book out within 2 to 4 weeks.
that's true. So how much do you think that influences these days, like books influencing Netflix versus Netflix influencing books? Like, should authors be kind of on like the radar, always looking around at different cultural events?
I think they should. I don't know like what the balance would be between where
Sure.
where are books coming first and where are movies or TV coming first. But I think it is important to know what's happening kind of in the cultural zeitgeist.
Yeah.
And what are people enjoying when they sit down to watch? And can you translate that into a book? And are you the type of writer that can optimize and get it out quickly enough? If
Right.
there's like a big wave of something, can you ride that wave? Or if you're a slower writer and you know it's going to take 6 or 9 months before you can put a book out, do you think it's worth it to focus on something that's trending right this instant? Or do you want to fall back on something that's more stable and has been around for a longer time and just go back to like your main tropes and your main character styles? So
Yeah.
everything I say, my answer is always it depends to
Yeah.
almost every question you're going to ask.
it's it's so we're always looking for like that golden silver
Hmm.
bullet, right? As a writer, it's like, yeah, but that's, I mean, this is really, these are truths that really should sink in. If you are a fast writer, you can probably ride more trend waves. If not, like there are stories that are pretty consistent, like
Hmm.
for years, and you can pretty
Yep.
much keep that wave going.
And
As
even like if traditional marketing or traditional publishing says that a particular subgenre is dead, like for years and years and years, we heard that vampires were dead. Vampires have always sold. So like
yeah,
trad publishing may not want to put money into it because they think they can make more money on a different type of story. But indie authors can keep putting out vampire books and there are still readers for those books. It's just not the huge wave that maybe
true.
was there when
Twilight.
True Blood, when True
Yeah,
Blood was finally turned
yeah,
into a TV show, or with the Anita Blake wave back in like the early 2000s, it goes up and down, but there will still be readers for it. You just have to find them. And sometimes it's a little
right.
bit more difficult to find them when it's a lot. it's not the 400 million people that want romantasy right now.
Yeah.
It's something different, right? So that's just a new wave. You have to find your readers within all the ones that are out there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And eventually you have to settle in, what are you good at storytelling? Like what,
Hmm.
and if like I wish I could have run the romantasy. I really admire it, but I was like, I can't come up with anything. So
Right.
like, better not try, to like put out something bad than actually write something that I'm good at writing. I think
Exactly. Yeah, it's always better to double down on what you know you can do well because you can make
right.
exponential gains on
Mm.
something you're intrinsically good at, where you can make baby step gains on something you're intrinsically not good at. So
Yeah.
why focus on that stuff when you know you can do so much better on something that you have skill and the desire to work on?
So true. That's why I like the Clifton strengths. Like you're focusing on what you're good at
Hmm.
rather than like
Yep.
focusing on developing all the things that you're not good at, right? So as you were learning to like get through the slush piles and then editing it, and you said like they were looking for the voice. Like, can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I think sometimes writers aren't sure what that means. I like how you said it was like a storytelling, but what is it that fully encompasses when it comes to like something that translates into a book that really like just speaks to the readers, right?
Mhm. A lot of it is, especially as new authors, it takes a while to kind of settle into your voice and figure out what the best way forward is for
Mm,
you. Um, Voice is kind of that like not well defined, everybody has it, but we don't know how to talk about it kind of thing. But it's how you write. So it's the words
mm,
you use, it's the structure and the cadence that you use in your sentences, but it's also the types of stories that you like to tell, the types of characters that you like to have in the book, the themes, the tropes, the universal fantasy, all of that comes into and combines to make your particular voice.
mm-hmm.
So if you have a favorite author, a lot of times if somebody just handed you a book and opened it up to the middle and didn't tell you who had written it, you can read a couple pages and be like, oh, wait, that's a Nora Roberts book. And I recognize
Yeah.
that because I know she writes like this. I know she uses this kind of structure. I know that she has these types of characters who have this type of banter. All of that comes
Mm-hmm.
into voice. So everyone has it, but especially as a new author, we're trying to figure out where we are in the world and how we're going to write. And so a lot of times you won't have as strong of a voice because you want to make sure that you're doing things the right way. And you want to make sure that you're not too far out of like whatever the kind of median is because you don't want to sound too wild or too boring or anything like that. But at the same time, that can strip the voice out of it. So
Yeah,
when you're
it's
just
hard.
learning, you just have to keep writing
Okay.
and determine like what works for you, what you enjoy about it, focus on that, and then the voice will automatically come from it.
Do you think new writers should keep writing the book that they have, or should they like finding the voice? Have you seen like the development of voice in authors
Mhm.
that you've worked with like what are some of the ways that they have just sort of like found that right that I guess that nugget of who they're going to be? Is it writing short stories? Is it writing other things? Is it just working on one book? I bet you're
I
going to
would
say it depends.
say it does depend. I generally say you can only write to the best of your current ability. And
Mm,
so, what you can write on your first book is going to look different from what your best ability is on your third book, is going to look very
yeah.
different from what your best ability was on your 10th book, right? So do the best you can, but there has to be a point where you hit that diminishing returns and you say, okay, I could keep trying to perfect this thing that I already created at a first level skill set, or I can move on and start over with something new because I'm now at a second level skill set because I put all that work into the
Yeah.
first. So
Yeah.
for each person, obviously it's going to be different. But
Right.
at some point, if the first story just isn't working or it's not getting the traction that you want, I think it's time to move on to the second story because you can take everything you've learned and put it into that second one, where that first one, you're kind of locked into what you wrote
Yeah.
on day one, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So finding that balance and where you do that is going to be different for every person. Some people want
Yeah.
to go back and just start over completely with book one and rewrite it from scratch. Some people want to throw it under the bed in a box, never look at it again, and start book two. Some people just come up with a new pen name altogether, and they're like, "We're just going to start over, try new genre, see what happens
Yeah.
there." So it
Yeah.
depends.
But you gotta kind of get the full story out, somehow,
Hmm.
like however you're gonna do it, whether you publish it or not. Like I do think finishing the story, like if you are a writer, if you can actually finish the story and then learn from that, that's
Hmm.
when you can really go forward, right? Like, but that cycle, I think you're so right. Like you have that diminishing return if you just keep going and going and
You
going. At
keep
some
trying to
point, you got to
perfect.
stop, right?
Yeah. There's a story that floats around, and it's like an art professor, and he told one half of his class to make the perfect vase, and he told the other half of his class to make 40 vases. And at the end of the project, and that's not exactly it, but basically, at the end of the project, the half of the class that had made 40 vases made a more perfect vase than the one just because they redid it over and over and over and they had that skill set and they had learned where
Right.
the one just had that one to work on.
Yeah. So we should stop looking for perfectionism. Like we
Oh
just
gosh, yeah.
need.
Yeah, because perfection, like there's no definition of perfection. Everyone defines perfection their own way.
That's
So
so true.
even if you find it, there's still going to be a reader out there who hates it and is going to tell you in a review,
So true.
right?
And
You
and
can't
that's the
stop that.
thing. Like if all you can take any book that is huge on Book Talk right now as this
Hmm.
episode goes out. And you're going to find people who hated it or can
Hmm.
pick it apart or it's not that good or the writing or the story or whatever, right? Like
Yep. And they
at
have very
some
specific
point
reasons, and they are right
they
about it.
are
And that's all
right.
just opinion.
Yes. So how do you take you because you have a membership, you have coaching.
Mhm.
How do you help people? Do you focus more on like figure out storytelling? Because in the last few years, that is what I have really come down to. It's like you need to understand what a story is and how to tell a story.
Mhm.
And I think we're all capable of it, but there are, some people who tell it a little bit differently or better. I hate using the word better, but that is something more that we should focus on more than like the perfect sentence,
Mhm.
or whatever, whatever else
So,
we get caught up on.
right. The bulk of my work is still editing,
Hmm.
and I mostly do developmental, which is kind of overall story edits.
Right, right.
I will do some line, which is more about style and writing and intent, and copy edits, which is more technical grammar. But mostly what I focus on now for like my day-to-day work is developmental editing. And like the structure and the how to get the story across really comes in there. For the membership group that I have, it's called the HEA Club, and we'll bring in a live presenter each month. And so I
Mm,
try to mix that up between sometimes it's just an author coming in and talking about like their journey, how they got here. Sometimes it's very writing craft focused, and we're talking about anything from because it's all romance authors, like how to write sex scenes well
mm-hmm.
to how to work through goal motivation and conflict or how to build your characters. And then sometimes we'll do business stuff where it might be someone coming in to talk about writing a blurb, which is kind of between writing craft itself and the business stuff, but you
Which
need the
some of
blurb
us
to actually sell the
hate.
book, right?
Yes,
And they're hard.
they are hard.
Or I have had like a tax accountant came in to talk about taxes, and I've had cover designers and web designers come in to talk
Right,
about
right,
that part of
right.
it.
Because that's all part of it. It's the whole package,
Hmm.
right?
Exactly.
It's interesting. So we have like, and I think there's something about being together and like understanding, like not having to do it alone as
Yes.
an author is pretty helpful.
Yeah. The community aspect is big.
Yes, yeah. So when you get into like developmental editing, is that something you do in the group or is that something that people outside of the group can also work with you on?
Mhm. No, that's just me being a freelance
Okay.
editor. And so it's usually indie authors that I work with. They'll reach out and say that they have a romance novel because I only work on romance that is ready for a developmental edit. And then I have a team that I work with. And so I think there are 7 of us on the team at this point,
Wow.
that do everything from developmental edits down to proofreading. So depending on the type of
Mm-hmm.
story and availability and what the author is looking for, then I'll try to match that manuscript with the editor who would be the right fit for it.
Okay. So what would you say to romance writers of like when is the right moment to send off the manuscripts? Because I will tell you I have some experience of getting manuscripts and I have to tell them I don't think that your money is well spent right now getting
Mhm.
a developmental edit. I think that there's some like you still need to learn a few things. Otherwise, I'm just taking money for
Mhm. I
So
have had that conversation
okay.
before. Um, for a developmental edit, a lot of times it's not on my website, but I will, if I'm doing the developmental edit, I'll offer to kind of downgrade it to a critique for the author.
Mm,
And that's generally like if the goal motivation conflict isn't set, and that's just the basic story structure that has to be there for the book to make sense. If they're not at that point yet, I'll downgrade them to a critique. I'll give them kind of overall feedback of 2 or 3 things that are working well, but maybe 3, 4, or 5 things that still need to be addressed in the story. They'll work on that. And then if they want to come back for a full dev, we can do that.
right, right.
I
That's
do
kind
try
of you
to,
though, because
right, I don't want to steal their money either. I
yeah.
would rather refund it and not work with you at all if you think you can do the work to bring it up to a higher level on yourself. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
always willing to share resources on self-editing
Sure.
and writing and things like that. Um, I do try to meet authors where they are. And so if the goal motivation conflict is there, it's not super strong, but at least we have that main structure in the story, then I'm still willing to work with you on it. And I just want to kind of strengthen that infrastructure. We're going to make that stronger. If you have nailed GMC and you want to dig into more like a deeper character arc and more themes and symbolism, then I will meet you there and I will help you at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no point in me working on themes with someone who's still kind of wobbly when it comes to conflict.
Yes. Okay, so I came across as I was scrolling on Facebook and like you know how you're entering all these like writer and author groups and then all of us I don't know which one it was, but
Mhm.
somebody made a big statement about how they don't think there should like I should have to put conflict in my story. And of course there I don't know if they were trying to be controversial. I only read that. What do you think about that? Cuz I had lots of thoughts of like what?
My
Like,
thought is you're an indie author, you can do whatever you want.
you can.
You
Yes.
can. You also have to realize what the market is looking for and
Hmm.
if you can sell the product that you have created to that market.
Yes.
There is a reader for every single book,
There really is.
right?
Yes.
But there may be fewer readers for a book that has no conflict than
Yeah.
there are for books that have conflict. So if you come to me and you tell me I want low angst. I want very little conflict. I still want you to do a developmental edit of my book that has no conflict and is just a story of 2 people dating. I will do my best to provide that for you.
Yeah.
But if you don't tell me that, then I'm going to come at it from what I consider reader expectations and
Yes.
romance and say we need to have strong GMC to kind of keep people flipping pages because they want to know what happens next. And if you don't have
Yeah.
conflict and you don't have stakes, you often lose that impetus for them to turn the page because they don't really care what's going to happen.
Yes. It really does come down to not only the like your book, but what is your goal, I think, as a long-term writer,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. Yeah.
Like if you just want to write whatever you want to write, and I've done that. Like, yeah, I
Mhm.
just want to write this book. Just to know that you might have like 10 readers
Mhm.
versus 10,000, right? Or
Exactly. And I think it's the same with marketing too. If you
mm,
don't want to run ads or you don't want to be on social media, none of those are required for you to publish a book,
no.
but it might be required for you to gain more readers. So
Mm,
you have to know, like you said, what you want to get out of this, out of the book, out of your career, and then make changes or choices at that point to say, okay, yes, this is worth my time or worth my money, or no, this is something that I'm definitely not going to do. And if I lose the readers because of it, then so be it.
yeah, yeah. But you should know.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
always tell people, like, at least like make the decisions on purpose, right? Like if this is what you're going to do in your book, like at least know that you did it on purpose so that when somebody reviews it and says, I don't like that, you say, well, that's fine.
Yeah.
You know, it's
It's
the
just
worst
not the
when
book
you
for
don't
you.
do it on purpose and then you're like, should I have done that? You know, like
Right.
we just have to really face that head on, right? Instead
Hmm.
of being like, I don't know. Um, just make the decision. It's good. It's
Yep.
fine.
I agree.
And then you can dig in your heels. But um, I try to talk to writers because okay, so I always admit I had this misconception when I first started writing of like I will work on my draft and I will work on it and work on it and work on it and finally get to the end and I'll reread it, right? And edit it. And I'm doing air quotes for anyone listening. And
Hmm.
then it's done and I send it off to the editor and they're going to like, make some tweaks and then but then it won't take that long
Hmm.
and when I get it back and then but it's done. Like I love that word done, right?
I'm done.
So how can we explain this because the reality is no. Like especially as a new writer, a lot of times I think we get frustrated with how much red there is, how much work is actually on the other end of that,
Hmm.
what we call the first 20th draft that we, like we're actually sent it off to the editor. So how do you communicate that, I guess, to authors when you're like a developmental edit means how much more work is coming to them?
So, like when somebody books with me, I don't immediately tell them, this is what you may get, and it may take you this long to work through it. Even new authors, I have people who can get an 8-page developmental letter back from me, and they can work on it and have a revision done in 2 or 3 weeks. And
Mm-hmm.
then there are people where it takes 6 months.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
so, yeah, I think what's important, I'm going to kind of flip your question
Mm-hmm.
around. What's important is you figuring out what you need from the editor and finding the editor who's going to provide that.
Oh, that's a new, okay.
So, like I have friends who when they send a developmental edit letter out, it could be 20 pages long. And I've seen
Mm.
editors that say they send 40 or 50-page letters.
Oh, wow.
If I received that, I'd be like, F this, I'm out. I'm never writing again. I'm gonna go find a
That's a
new
whole
job,
book in
right? That's
itself.
too
Oh my
much.
goodness.
Yes. But there are some people who want that much feedback.
Okay.
And so I think it's
Yeah.
important to talk to the editor, find out what they're going to provide you and make sure that matches up with what you want. If people
Okay.
ask, and I think I have it, it might be on the website somewhere, but if people ask, the letters from me and my team usually range from like 5 to 10 pages. And
Yeah.
if you're a stronger author, it's probably going to be a little bit less in the letter and we'll put a lot more. I don't want to say stronger author. If you are a more experienced author,
Mm-hmm.
it'll be a shorter letter with more specific comments on the document saying, hey, this was great, or I think this needs to be addressed, or I think you can strengthen this here. If you're a newer author or if you've never received a developmental letter before, then it's going to be more in the letter, more
Mm-hmm.
explanation, more definition of why I'm suggesting this thing,
That's
whatever it
nice
is,
though.
and
Yeah.
probably fewer comments in the document because I want you to get more of the overview and not be
Right.
overwhelmed by the things I'm asking you to change
Yeah.
line by line.
No, but getting that definition is so nice because if you're like here, if it's in the document, show don't tell, and you
Hmm.
don't know
What's
what
that
that
mean? Yeah.
means, or like, can you dig deeper? I remember getting that dig a little deeper, and the character was like,
To
what?
what? What am I digging for? What's
Yeah, like
happening?
what? I have no idea.
Yeah.
That can be way more overwhelming than reading through 10 pages and being like, "Oh, I can do that."
Hmm.
Right? Like I can go back and fix that. But really at least I want people to understand there will be work at the end. Like you do
Yes.
have to. You can't just accept all changes. Like,
On a dev edit, you definitely can't. When it comes to line editing or copy editing, once you've worked
right.
with an editor a couple times and you're comfortable with them, I do suggest you just accept all
Yeah, yeah.
rather than clicking through on 14,000 revisions in your document and then just read through, make sure nothing sounds weird or
Mm,
is incorrect, and then you're done. And it's amazing. And it was so
Yay!
easy. But you need to have a relationship with that editor. You need to know their style and that it matches up with your style before you can just hit that accept all button. On the dev
Yeah.
edit, though, like you're probably rewriting, you're cutting, you might be moving chapters around, you might
Yeah.
be inserting or removing entire characters. And
Hmm.
so there's definitely more work involved there.
Yes. There's always like, I think we need a whole chapter on this. And you go, oh.
Mm, okay.
Okay, I'll
Sit
do
down, get
that.
to work.
I guess so. But it's great. I think you learn the most on the developmental edits as a writer.
I agree.
You're really seeing how what you put on the page is translating to an entirely new brain.
Hmm.
Because we're trying to get a story, right? But you just don't know if it's getting there until somebody
Hmm.
completely new reads it, because if I reread my story, I already know what's happening, and it's weird
And you know what you
how
meant.
yes.
Yeah.
Like, it's so funny when people are like, I don't know what this means. And you go, well, how do you not know what that
Hmm.
means? Because my brain understands it.
With the Clifton strengths, I'm a big strengths nerd. And so a lot of my authors have become big strengths nerd because I kind of shoved them into it. But what we've learned is writers with high empathy a lot of times aren't good about showing emotion on the page
Oh,
because
that's
as they write
interesting.
it, they're feeling all the emotions that's happening. And so they think it's there,
Oh,
but they never actually type the words because it's just all inside of them.
interesting. Oh, that's so important to
Yep.
know. Oh, I love that. Yeah,
And then
there's
I've
lots.
learned authors with low context, I will often ask a lot of why questions, like how
Mm,
did we get here? Why did this person make this decision? What happened to lead up to this point? And it's just because their brain doesn't work on that context function like mine does, where I'm looking for the steps that got us there. They're like, no, we're here and this is what's happening. But
yeah.
I need to know why.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. And do you go like incorporate strengths in the membership? Are you
It's not incorporated. If I know what people's strengths are, like if they share it with me,
mm-hmm.
then that gives me an idea of kind of how they think sometimes.
Yeah,
And if I can adjust the way that I'm delivering information to make it easier for them
sure.
to understand what I'm trying to communicate, then I will use it for that.
Yeah.
And then we've had strengths coaches come in and talk to the group before also, but it's not like a specific part of the
Yeah.
membership.
It's just an interesting thing, especially as a writer. I mean, you and I are both high-end learner, and so
Hmm.
we probably like went down that rabbit hole, right? But as a writer, if you want really strong characters, to understand how other people relate to the world, I think is
Hmm.
always helpful, right? So just understanding instead of just being like, I don't understand that person, and why are they acting like that? Like trying to get that. I think it's a really you don't have to go too deep, I feel like, in Clifton strengths to be like, oh, that's why that person
Yeah.
did that. It's not like a whole psychology degree.
Hmm.
It's really nice.
Exactly. And I like strengths are really good for building character where if you want two characters who maybe have opposing personalities, you could make one competition and one woo, right? And those
Yes.
aren't exactly opposites, but a lot of times they can have personality traits that will make them more opposing. Enneagram can be really, really good for
Hmm.
building characters. And then actually the love languages, which a lot of people are like, it's not scientific. I don't want you to use it for science.
Yeah.
I want you to use it to build conflict and communication between people
Yeah.
where if I want you to tell me that you love me by saying the words, but you want to tell me you love me by giving me gifts, we're going to have miscommunication. And that's another way to
Ah,
build conflict between characters.
that is a really good point though, because the greatest stories, right, is where the miscommunication, because I get a little upset when people are like the miscommunication trope is terrible, and it has
Mhm.
been just like anything. People use it better and worse.
Right.
But when it's subtle like that, where you're like your brain
Mhm.
understands what's happening, but it's not just like I want him to give me gifts and like, but you as the author know I haven't heard of somebody using love languages, but it makes so much sense now that you say it.
Mhm.
And like the more that you know as the author, the more that you can add those subtle hints, right? And like,
Exactly.
ah, and just make it deeper and like,
Hmm.
oh, because the readers are so smart. Like, this is why I always tell people, like, you have to treat your reader like they're really smart because they are. And
Right.
they are reading it way faster than you wrote it. And their brain is always looking for those
Especially
little,
romance readers,
always.
right?
You're like, what are they going to do? How are they
Uh-huh.
going to break up? What's going to happen? Because we know that they're going to have to do something so
Hmm.
that they finally get together at the end. So like, what are they going to do? It's just like mystery readers. Like, who was it? Who did it? I want
Right?
like,
Where are the clues? Which ones
yeah,
are the red herrings?
yeah, yeah. And if you
Yeah.
get to the end and you didn't get any clues, you're like, no, that's not okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Okay, I'll put a link in the show notes to the love languages because I do think that that's kind of an older book, isn't it? I feel like when I was a teenager, that was a big deal.
Like
Like the
mid
love language.
90s, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I mean, it's romance, love, like obviously.
exactly. And it's communication. It's how people communicate.
Yeah,
And we need that.
absolutely.
Yeah. Enneagram has really good, if you dive into their stuff a little bit deeper, they'll tell you like what the baseline is
Mm,
for somebody with, Enneagram number and wing number, whatever it is. But then you can see how they are at their best self from that number and then
mm-hmm.
how they are at their worst self. And
Yeah.
so, and it includes things like fears and how they communicate and things like that. So you can use Enneagram also to say, okay, I want to start these two people at these numbers at their worst self
Yeah.
and then let them grow to their best self. And Enneagram like tells you you need to take them from X to Z, and you
Yes.
have it all right there. You just have to be able to like plot that into the book, how it's going to happen.
Yes. Like it is okay, authors, to go and find this. Like you don't have to make everything up
Oh
yourself.
yeah,
Like
absolutely. There's so many resources available.
yes, yes. We are definitely going to have the link to your website in the show notes because you do have a lot of resources and
Thank
I
you.
think
I have
it
a
will
lot
help people.
of like little shortish articles also that go into
Yeah.
some of this stuff, not super deep, but
But you
gives you
do
ideas.
the last thing I wanted to talk to you about is that you do
Mhm.
have an article out and I've been thinking about this a lot about the beginning of the book.
Mhm.
And there's a lot out there about, there are lots of competitions for like the first line or like the first chapter. And everyone says if you want to be a traditionally published author, or even like, indie authors take that into account and say, like, if you want to hook the reader, you need a great first chapter. And I think so, we have a hard time. This is my theory, and you can let me know what you think. We're like trying to figure out the characters and the world in the first six chapters.
Mhm.
And a lot of times, for some reason, we just think that the first chapter has, like I wrote it, it's there, we just keep it. But it's it's almost like those first six chapters are a lot of repetition, a lot of digging, a lot of trying to figure it out, a lot of, there are times that I pick up a book and I'm like, oh no, they didn't go back to the first six chapters and review from the point of view of like, who is the character at the end? Let me fix the beginning, right?
Mhm.
And yet there's still a lot of information out there. But somehow we get, I don't know, we get like hung up on this is what I wrote, therefore this is where it is, like, so how do you help people with that beginning of like, we're so married to that beginning and yet sometimes it's really not where the story should start, or it's just sort of tends to be like this author digging until
Mhm.
it finally like
Mhm.
starts out.
So I've definitely had authors that I've worked with where I have told them to delete the first one, three, seven chapters.
Yes.
And it turns into a conversation of you had to get to know the people in the story, but the readers don't need all that information, right? They want an inciting incident, and that's where we need to go. And so when stories come in like that, I'm not one generally to rearrange things. I like my brain just doesn't work that way. I can't take the puzzle pieces of your book and move them around, but I can say this chapter isn't moving the story forward, right? There's no momentum in it for whatever reason. And authors, some of them, when I've worked with them, have been able to realize, okay, I need to write this in order to get to know these people and figure out where I want to go with the story and all of that. And they recognize that it's not wasted words, even if they have to cut them, because
Yes.
they couldn't have gotten to the end of the story without them first writing those first couple chapters.
Yes.
They had to write it to figure out who the characters were, where they wanted to go with it, what little, Easter eggs they wanted to drop in, what mystery they wanted to build, whatever it was. So I always try to convince people that it's not wasted words. It's just not words that the reader needs. And
Yes.
so
Yes.
if you can't figure that out on your own, that's a great thing for critique partners or an editor or beta readers to help you with. But you also have to be sure that you're working with people who are willing to give you real feedback about it and not just be your best friend or your sister or your mom and say how much they love your book and it was perfect and you don't need to change
Yes.
anything.
This is true. This is so hard. Like, it is true that, like, I really am trying to repeat over and over. It's really not wasted words. And I don't know. That's why I go back and forth on, like, how many words is your manuscript up to? Like, it can be a great motivation, but it's
Mhm.
not necessarily everything, right? Like,
Right.
we have to, whatever goals gets you through, but at the same time, even if you have to take it and, like, you don't even have to delete it, just move it off the page,
Mhm.
move it out of the book. That's just part of the process, right? Like,
Yeah.
we're writers. We got to write it.
Yeah.
And even if you're a plotter, sometimes you have to write it and it doesn't quite
To
get
figure it
there.
out. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I think that is usually those chapters where they feel like they're just sort of circling. That's the writer just trying to figure out. And then you
Mhm.
go, okay, now here we are. And a lot of times you can just
Yeah.
delete all of it.
And like save it for bonus content. Get
Yeah.
people to sign up for your newsletter by sending them the 4 chapters that you had to cut that your editor
Yes.
thought weren't necessary.
Yes. And they might be like, I love this because now they know the
Exactly.
characters. They get a little bit deeper.
Yep.
Yes. Nothing's wasted, right? We can always use them.
Exactly.
But don't get married to your first chapter. It might not need to be there.
I mean, don't get married to the whole thing,
That's
right?
true. Yes.
Because you may have an intent with the story, but if it's not coming through for the reader, then you may have to go back and revise.
And that's okay, right? This is just part of the process of writing a book.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's
Exactly.
no
If
big
you
deal.
made chocolate chip cookies and you had too much baking soda in them, you need
Done that.
somebody to tell you, hey, these don't taste good. Maybe you
Yeah.
should try again.
Toss them.
Right?
There's no saving that when that
No.
happens. I almost did that the other day. I was like, oh no, this is baking soda, not
Hmm.
baking powder. Bad choice. All right. So what can people we will have the link to your website in the show notes. Can people join your membership like on a rolling basis? Do you have like a certain times of year that they can join, or like how does that work?
Yay, I'm back.
Yay. It's like right at the end, the last little questions. And it's like, that's so funny. All right. So how can people join your membership? Is it a rolling process? Like they can join whenever? Or do you have specific times of year that you open it?
Nope, it's always open. It's called the HEA Club. You can find the button on my website. And it is just a monthly subscription. So you can pop in for a month or two, make sure it's a good fit. If it's not, you can leave, no hard feelings. If you do join, we are all romance authors. About 50% of the group is published. We have about 60 members right now. So about 50% are still writing their first book. And most people are indie, though we do have a few trad authors in the group. I bring in a live presenter every month. So, like this month, we have somebody to come in and talk about sex scenes. In March, we'll have somebody come in and talk about, no, in April, we'll have somebody come in and talk about marketing.
Mm-hmm.
In March, we'll have somebody come in and talk about cybersecurity for authors. So, like how to
Oh,
keep
wow.
yourself safe online, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we've got a great community. We have a Facebook group that's where most of the conversations happen. So that's a good
Okay.
place to like get feedback on your blurb, or if you have a
Yeah.
question about industry stuff, it's all right there.
Well, that's really cool that they're not everyone is published. So even if you're
Mhm.
starting, you can feel comfortable going and just learning. It would be great. It would have been great in 2015 if I had found something like
Yeah,
that.
exactly, right?
It's
I
like,
wanted to basically create what my local RWA chapter was
right.
after RWA kind of imploded in
Yeah.
2020. And
Yeah.
so I launched the HEA Club in 2021, and I'm high learner, as we've talked about with
Yes.
Clifton Strengths. I like to learn things. And so being able to bring a presenter in and teach every month is my absolute favorite part of having the group. And we have almost all of those presentations recorded from 2021 forward. So
Oh,
we have over
wow.
100
So they
that,
can just binge
yeah,
those.
go over writing, craft, and business. Yeah.
That's amazing. All right. Well, thank you, Jessica, so much for coming on and talking with us. It's always good to talk with somebody who is in the editing, side of writing so that we can learn from you guys. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the invite. This has been a lot of fun.